Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to yet another Power Pack session of Master Speak. Today, we have not only a very special guest, but also a very special host doing this session with us. So, without much ado, it's my pleasure to welcome Dipali Nair. Dipali Nair is the Chief Marketing Officer of IBM in India and South Asia. She has over 2 decades of experience into sales, marketing, and e-commerce. And she, not only that, she has won various awards, including the CMO's Super 30 list and Economic Times Tech CMO. And the list does not end here. You'll be happy to know that Dipali also hosts one of the most reputed marketing show in India on Avas. Without much ado, it's my pleasure to welcome Dipali. Dipali, over to you from here.
Thank you, Ashish. And let me introduce our guest now. Thank you for, telling people about the awards and about my podcast. But today we have a very special guest. And when a guest has such three vibrant personas and each better than the other, then sometimes I don't know where to begin introducing them. So I will start with her persona, which is closest to mine. She has a very, very popular podcast. It's called What's Next. It's on iTunes. It's ranked one of the top 50 business marketing and management podcasts, and there are about 90 episodes, each one better than the other. Her second persona is that she's the author of a best selling book. The book's name is Growth IQ. It was published in 2018. It has been translated in over 9 languages and has been on the Wall Street Journal's bestseller list. It's one of the 800 CEO Reads top 5 strategy and leadership books of 2018 and continues to be a monthly bestseller on Porchlight. I would run out of time if I were to start reading out the list of awards she has won personally in the domain of sales, marketing, and management thinking. She is a guru, according to me. But her third persona is her corporate persona. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce the global growth and innovation evangelist at Salesforce. In her role at Salesforce, she works with some of the most innovative companies in the world. She helps them transform the way they engage with customers, grow their business, and create amazing customer experiences. And these are the 3 areas that we are hoping that she covers today for us. She is Tiffani Bova, and I'm delighted to welcome her on Future Generali Masters Speak. In her book, she covers 10 tenets of how to grow and magically keep growing. Today, let's ask her to share her wisdom on the 3 things I mentioned: engage with customers, grow the business, and create amazing customer experiences. Tiffani, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dipali. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. It's really a pleasure to be with you here today, and to everybody else. I always say we can make more money, but we cannot make more time. So I'm really thrilled to be here with you today. So let's get started. First and foremost, I like to say that growth is a thinking game. And as was mentioned in sort of the introduction, I'm going to take you on this journey of what it's like to grow during these difficult times. From a business perspective, we always have to start and be very grounded in saying thank you and being grateful for the fact that customers continue to use us for our products and services and also engage us in broader shareholder community conversations. But I also want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation this evening. I know you've probably had a long day. It's very early for me. I'm joining you today from Los Angeles, California, but there's no place I would rather be than be here with you. So let's get started. In the beginning, you can always remember that in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. Now, what does this mean? It means that so many things are coming at us at this moment, so many decisions that we need to make, that we have to make sure we keep a beginner's mind, space in our day-to-day to allow us to learn something new, network with someone we haven't spoken to previously, try something in a new way, and not be afraid of failure. I like to say you either win or you learn. Failure is a stepping stone to success. And having a beginner's mind is the first thing you need to do. Be open to the possibilities of what we can do differently now that we're in this situation. I don't need to share with everybody sort of what got us here. But at one point, a little more than a year ago, we were hit by a black swan event, a pandemic that reached every corner of the globe. But what it did was it cracked open this lack of investments that many companies had made on their digital journey, making sure that their employees and customers were able to engage with them in a digital way, that they were able to service and support customers no matter where they were in the world. And what has happened through the last 12 months is we've seen amazing progress in companies really doubling down on the things that make them successful. How can they better engage with their customers? How do they empower and enable their employees better? How do they sell during this difficult time? But more importantly, how do they make sure that their customers are successful using the technologies, products, and services that they might sell? Ultimately, it's about moving to being more resilient and agile and customer-led. But that doesn't happen overnight. There are many decisions that have had to be made along the way. Leaders around the globe are deciding, should they go back to the status quo or should they focus on the future? Should they look past all the investments they might not have made historically, but that they've made today? Are they inspired by the possibilities of what we have in front of us? I hope so. But I'll say the companies that I've had the pleasure of meeting with and speaking to virtually over the last 12 months has really shown that resilience is here. And all of the decisions that we've been making will make a huge impact in the way that we recover going forward. Now, I often get asked, do I think we'll go back to normal? First, I want to be clear. I don't want us to go back. I don't want us to go back to the status quo. I want us to take advantage of all these things we've learned during this time. I believe it's going to fall somewhere in the middle. I don't believe we will stay as we are today from a commerce, a digital, a business engagement perspective, and even a selling perspective. But I don't believe we're going to go back to the way that it was either. I think we're going to take the things we've learned over the last 12 months and we're going to apply them differently to the things that we are now able to do in the marketplace. So that said, lets me sort of begin this conversation of setting the scene of what's important from a customer perspective. Today, all digital customers, it's kind of the birth of this super consumer, this homebound economy, working from anywhere, educating from anywhere, shopping from anywhere. Music, the use of mobile phones significantly increased, bringing more and more people into the digital world, getting them online with 5G. So much transformation is happening at the technical layer, but a lot of this is going to change the way companies and brands engage with customers. One thing we've really noticed of late is physical appointments. What I mean by that is customers actually saying, whether I want to come into your shop and I've never had to have an appointment before, maybe I want to set an appointment so that I know during this time you will help me and help me specifically. Will the appointment economy replace this? I'm just going to casually go shopping. Is the experience we've now received over the last 12 months what we will expect going forward? Will traditional banking go away? In-store retail will continue to evolve. In-office visits will become much more controlled. But ultimately, this all-digital customer has this new experience that they now want from companies. And that means we all have to rethink a playbook for corporate growth. Whether you're a small business, a medium-sized business, or an enterprise, each of these recommendations is applicable to you. Regardless of where you are in your journey, each of them will give you some insights into what you should be focused on going forward. The first one is customer experience. This is a topic I've been talking about now for almost 10 or 12 years. And I can tell you one of the number one things I hear pretty consistently is, how do I measure customer experience? I'm not sure how I can track how our customers feel when they engage with our brand or our people. But ultimately, we have to remember that this behavior change is the catalyst is the pandemic. But now the habit is that I have different expectations for the experiences I used to have with you to what I want to have today. We did some research that showed 86% of customers are willing to spend more for a better customer experience, and that 75% expect companies to use new technologies to create these better experiences. And these marketing leaders that are having to shore this up, meaning, should we change our website and our marketing? Should we make it easier and less frictionless for customers to buy from us? Ultimately, customers are remembering the experiences that they have with brands, because it isn't enough to just engage with customers. You have to connect with them. You have to connect with them at a personal level. You have to make sure that you are not falling short of the things that customers expect. Unfortunately, with our great aspirations of leaning into customer experience, we are still falling short of what customers may expect from us. Now, it's not for a lack of trying. It's really because these expectations from buyers is moving so quickly that brands are struggling to keep up. But the good news is more and more people and companies are understanding the power of investing in customer experience. It really is the new battleground. It is an area in which you would be able to overcome your competition, differentiate yourself in the marketplace with a much better experience that your competitors or others might have. What was your last best customer experience you had? Why was it? Who delivered it? How did it make you feel when you had that experience with a company? That's the way you want your customers to feel. Excited, engaged, connected with you as a company. What people want is the following. They want you to know them. They want you to know what they want, and they want you to add value. The new currency of sales requires you to have real-time information about a customer. It needs to be personalized. It needs to be predictive, and you need to optimize how you do it. Now, real-time is getting even more challenging because the economy is 24/7 on a global basis. The internet has created a borderless economy, but that also means that you have to become more personalized and more engaging because people are competing for your customers on a global basis from all over the world. Predicting what they may want next is a great way to make sure you stay connected and engaged with them, not just from a product perspective, but from a service perspective. And that goes back to using technology in new ways to optimize the way you sell, market, and service to your customers. The bottom line is customers will remember the experience they have with a brand or a person much longer than the price that they paid. Now, you may say, that's not possible. But when we were all able to travel, I often say, if you went to a really fine dining restaurant and the food was spectacular, but the service was not very good, would you go back? If the service was really fantastic and the food was good enough, would you go back? The point being that if someone treats you special, remembers your name, remembers what you ate the last time, makes you feel like family, makes you feel like they want you to be in their establishment, you're much more likely to go back. And so ultimately, that is how people will remember the experience they have with your company much longer than the price that they paid. That lends me to the second one, and that is focus on the gold you already have. So much time, energy, and effort is spent on acquiring net new customers, but that doesn't mean you can forget the ones you already have. So many companies get so fixated on that next new brand, the next new logo, closing that big deal, that those customers you already have acquired feel as if you're completely ignoring them, that you don't care enough about them to continue to make investments in their success. But your greatest sales force is your customers and partners advocating on your behalf. Keeping them happy generates loyalty and goodwill. The first dollar you earn from a customer is great, but the second and third dollar shows you've done something right, that they're willing to come back to you again and again. And that's where sustainable growth really can become accelerated. That gold you already have isn't possible to mine, if you will, unless you get better at selling. Companies do two things. Now, I'm going to oversimplify, but they make stuff and they sell stuff. They make things, they sell things. They might sell other people's products and services, but ultimately the goal of business is to sell something. And so if you're unable to sell in an optimized way, if you're unable to deliver the products and services that your customers are looking for, both pre-sales, during an implementation or during a deployment, or post-sales, then all of it was for naught, because you will have acquired this customer and then lost them right away. What a shame. So when you think about optimizing the way you sell, I want to be really clear. We do not have a technology problem. We have a people process problem. I've been in and around the internet now, the World Wide Web, for over 20 years. I bought my very first domain name in 1995. I've been on this journey for some time. And I can tell you, in early 2000, I was one of the very first customers for Eloqua. We were virtually selling via chat, recurring revenue over the web. We were selling web hosting and domain names. We were moving small businesses from offline to online. And it was really difficult for us. At that time, there might have been 10 or 12 marketing technologies out in the marketplace. Salesforce was about 18 months or 2 years old at the time. And I can tell you that now there's over 8,500 marketing technology products that we track. There's no shortage of technology. We can do all kinds of things when it comes to marketing and selling. So why hasn't that art of marketing and selling gotten better over time? We continue to struggle to deploy it and use it to its maximum capacity. Most of the time, it's because the people and process side of that investment is not equally paid attention to as it is on the technology side. Because lo and behold, 66% of a seller's time is still spent on non-selling activities. There's so many other things they're spending time on that they're not able to actually deliver what you've hired them to do, which is sell. You have to eliminate those hurdles, the things that take time out of their day-to-day, that don't allow them to connect and engage with customers, delivering those compelling and powerful experiences. Now, it's not lost on me working at Salesforce. Obviously, it's a massive CRM platform, marketing and sales and service, in commerce. There's so much that we do, but we're trying to drive a lot of the data entry out of the hands of humans. How can we allow the system to take second and third party data and automatically input it into the CRM? How do we use voice and video to capture those engagements and then track it, use artificial intelligence and machine learning to give people time back in their days, whether they're a customer service agent, whether they're a sales rep, or whether they're a marketer? At the end of the day, we want to make sure they're spending a majority of their time doing those functions that you've hired them to do. That leads me to what the future of selling will look like. It's very much insight-based. It isn't about what customers can find on their own. Making that easier for them, of course, is important. But what is the value you're going to add on top of that information they can find on their own? That insight you bring to the table, that you bring to your next video call, and if possible, your next face-to-face meeting. Ultimately, those insights, that's what differentiates you in the marketplace. Showing up and giving them information they can find on their own is of no value to anybody. It also impacts your ability to get them to want to buy from you again and again. Remember, this isn't about just selling to them once. This is about selling to them once, earning their loyalty and trust, and then selling to them again and again and again. And even if they don't buy from you a second or third time, are they sharing that they bought from you with their social network, others in their community? Remember, they can be your greatest selling engine, your greatest sales force, but those insights don't come on their own. They won't come if they're only in a salesperson's mind. They will come when you start to aggregate massive amounts of data looking for the intelligence to drive the business forward. If data is the new oil, analytics is the refinery. If analytics is the refinery, the insights are the petrol or the gasoline that powers the business. You cannot just have lots of data and not do anything with it. Using it in a very efficient and prescriptive way allows you to deliver those insights. Now, we went out and did some research in the middle of 2020 and asked what are sales leaders and high-performing companies focused on. We found these three things. This was a global study across small, medium, and large in multiple regions around the world. And it was a good 5,000 interviewed. The number one was reps retooling the tactics for a new selling landscape. Outside selling has become inside selling. We're now selling from anywhere. We're selling via virtual and video. Normally I would hope we'd all be in the same room together, but that isn't happening right now. So we have to figure out, how do we make sure that our people who are responsible for bringing revenue in the door have all the tools that they need? Remember, this isn't just about technology. This is about making sure you put the right people and processes in place. The second thing we found is operations. Sales operations is getting a bigger seat at the table. This makes me really happy because they are the bridge and the glue between the business unit leaders, a sales executive, a chief marketing officer, a head of customer success or service, and IT, finance, everybody together. The sales ops team can be the glue that helps everyone understand the implications of the decisions that are made from a technology, a people, and process perspective. Getting sales ops invested in the journey you're on to be much more digitally adapt, to think differently about being customer-led, and in making sure that your employees also have a really engaged and compelling experience. All of those things are absolutely in the hands of operations. So you have to make those investments. You have to make sure that sales ops has what they need to be successful. The third one is leaders pivot for recovery and growth. And this is one that I think makes me super excited because resiliency in sales, it's been a part of the business that doesn't have the same level of rigor that the rest of the company does. And so when you pivot for recovery and growth, you start to make these investments that you might have put off from the past. I called that the seller's dilemma. It was a play on Clayton Christensen's book, The Innovator's Dilemma. And it was, how do you hit numbers today while at the same time transforming your business? It requires everybody to understand, why are we transforming our selling motion? What's the purpose and the value from a customer perspective? And how do we make sure we give our sellers time back to be effective and to hit their quotas? Salespeople are continuously struggling to hit quota. Regardless of the pandemic, we were still in the low 50% range for quota attainment on a global basis. We have lots of room for improvement. But if you take these three into consideration, are you using the right tools? Does sales ops have a seat at the table? And if you're a small business and you don't have somebody responsible for sales ops, how can you get those that you're working with from an IT perspective to help guide you on what are the things you should be doing? And then really thinking about driving agility and eliminating this gap between what you're trying to achieve and what the customers are experiencing from you. So in the future, customer-driven organizations will completely reset value and meaningful engagement for customers. That's what this is all about. Resetting your mindset, giving yourself permission to try things differently than what you've done in the past. Remember, we can't go back to the status quo. We have to aspire to the art of what is possible, knowing all the things we've learned over the last 12 or 14 months. So let me leave you with this, a few high-level thoughts. First, starting with that beginner's mind. Every day, give yourself 15 minutes, a half an hour, to just think about, how could you do things differently? What could you try tomorrow that you didn't try today? Get much more comfortable with being uncomfortable, in not knowing our way forward, but giving it a try and seeing what will work. The second is, listen to your customers and your employees. It's important that you continue to ask them, what do they need from you? Both on the employee side and the customer side. Now, you don't have to deliver everything they might ask for, but you have to make sure you keep an eye on what they may want from you in the future, 18 to 24 months from now. It's very important you keep your eye on where the market is going. Don't chase your perceived competition. They are not you. They're the only ones with your products and services. They're the only ones with your brand name. They're the only ones with your customer set. So focus on that. Understand potentially what the competition is doing, of course, but don't be so fixated on it that you just try to replicate everything that they're doing. Don't be afraid of technology, embrace it. Make no mistake, I believe in human and tech. I don't believe in tech without human. I believe there is a power couple happening when humans start to use technology in new and innovative ways to take off those redundant tasks that are done on a daily basis, to free up more time for humans to do what really is required of us from a thinking and from a personality and connection and human connection perspective. Let the machines, let the technology pick up some of that day-to-day work that you don't need to be focused on. Your differentiation will be your mental model. How you do things. How you do things matters. Not only matters to your company, to those who work with you, but it also matters to your customers. So your mental model is what is unique to you. That's why I say don't chase your perceived competition, because there is no other you as a collection of everybody who works within your four walls. And then rally around the customer. Make sure they stay your true north. You know, the good news is that we've made so much progress on this conversation alone that it used to just be profit at all costs. We're seeing much more around purpose, business being the greatest platform for change, and really taking what customers and our broader shareholder community might need from us, not only today, but in the future. And how do we play a role in our communities, in our society, where our employees live and where they work? But you have to empower each other. It starts with each of you. Each of you individually will make a different decision, hopefully tomorrow, than you made today. So my question for you is, what will you do differently? What will you do differently based on what you heard here today? I hope you will change just maybe one thing. Remember, a 1% pivot on your day-to-day activities over the course of a year adds up to tremendous change, both personally and professionally. And whatever you do, be bold. Give it a shot. Work with your managers, work with your teammates. Make it a safe place for everyone to try things that may in fact not work, but that's okay. Remember, we win or we learn. It is a stepping stone to success. So with that, there's further inspiration for you. You can get your hands on this research and download it for free. We have the state of marketing, the state of service, and the state of sales, which shares with you all of this research that I've just highlighted. We also have something called the connected customer that talks about how customer behaviors have forever changed and what does that mean for brands from a sales, service, and marketing perspective. As was mentioned in the beginning, this is my podcast, What's Next with Tiffani Bova. I'm on all the podcast platforms. And then my book, Growth IQ, which just actually launched in paperback in the UK and Commonwealth. So I think that it's made its way over to India for you guys. And so there's multiple covers, as was mentioned. It's translated in 9 languages, but I hope you would check the book out. And if you do, please let me know what you think. And so once again, I want to thank you. Thank you for your time, your energy, your interest in this topic. I think we're going to turn it over now for some Q&A, but please post your questions and they'll bring them to me. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
It's wonderful, Tiffani, to listen to you. And I must tell you the nuggets I'm carrying back with me before I move on to the questions that are coming fast and furious. You know what you said, data is the new oil, analytics is the refinery, and insights is the gasoline. Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will also carry back a few other things. You know, you said your goal is really your customers and partners advocating on your behalf. Well said. You know, customer experience stays in memory long after the price you paid, you know, for the service is forgotten. People and processes are key. Get your sales guy to sell and not do all the other things, you know. And customer insight-based selling is key to winning. Very, very well said. As a marketer, you know, that is very close to my heart. And sales ops is your secret weapon now. Get them a seat on the table. You know, wonderful. And, you know, you mentioned Clayton Christensen, you know, my favorite. And page 2 of your book has got Ginny Rometty there. And I am from IBM. So, you know, you've actually endeared yourself completely. You know, thank you very much. And now for the questions, you know, that have come in. The first question that we have is from Harsha. And the question is there a quick checklist for small businesses to create and measure customer experience? Do they look at it differently?
Yeah, fantastic question. Because sometimes when I talk about what I think you should be doing, sometimes the small businesses hear, wow, that's a lot of investment. It's investment in IT and people, and I don't have the assets and capital to actually make those investments. So the best thing I can say to you is to rally around the customer from an employee standpoint and what it is you're doing. So I'm going to give you an example. It was probably April, May of last year. And our CEO, Mark Benioff, gave us a challenge to have 1 million conversations with customers. Now, mind you, we have 55,000 employees. It's a little bit easier to do that. But what was behind that is, what do customers actually want from us? What can we learn from asking those questions? We actually heard all kinds of fascinating things, which allowed us to make a decision to launch 5 new products. We reorganized parts of the business. We opened up 4,000 new jobs. We did a lot of things that we weren't planning on doing at the beginning of 2020 until the pandemic hit and we had those conversations. So my challenge to you would be, as a small business, have 100 conversations or 50 conversations. Ask your customers why they bought from you, what they need from you, what they need from you today, and what they need from you tomorrow. Now, in a perfect world, they'd know the answer to that question, but they don't always. But once you get in the habit of asking these questions, you'll start to uncover the experience that they're having with your company. They may say, it used to be I would always hear back from people within 24 hours. Now it's been 72 hours. And if you can capture that appropriately, you can start to make those adjustments in real time. So it doesn't always need to be that you invest in technology and you need more people. Sometimes you just have to do some small little activity like I just described, right? Reach out and talk to your customers. Connect with them and listen and ask better questions so that you can help prepare for what you're going to need in the future. So that's a great way for small businesses, because it isn't a heavy lift from a financial standpoint. It's really about time. And if you get into the habit of doing that, you'll be way ahead of your competition.
Follow-up question from Neha is also for a similar audience, and she's saying, in the current world where so many tech options are available, what is your suggestion to mid-sized businesses in selecting the right solution for them, especially when the owner, and small businesses in India typically owner run businesses, especially when the owner is not very tech oriented or tech savvy?
So I'm a massive fan for small businesses who don't have the technical capabilities to use third parties. So an external IT department, whether it's a technology reseller, so from IBM, right, there's thousands of resellers around the globe. If you don't have the technical talent, they will connect you with a partner, as well as all kinds of other technologies, Salesforce included. So if you're a small business and you don't have the technical talent, I would say rely on a third party to become your IT organization. And once again, I made a very quick comment that if you don't have a big enough sales team that has sales ops, then maybe that external IT person can really help you align those goals. But using third parties is a great way. You don't have to understand or be able to be technical in order to know what you want from a business perspective. So if you were to say, I want to connect with my customers 24/7 when I'm not in the office, how do I do that? Maybe it's automation, maybe it's chat bots, maybe it's service bots, maybe it's an external call center that could take calls when you're not in the office. You know what the business pain is you have. It's what's the best way to solve that. And that's why having those third-party IT resellers or integrators or consultants, and you may go, oh, that's a lot of money. Look, you're going to have to use somebody in order to leverage the capabilities of technology. So you're either going to have to hire them on, learn it yourself, or partner to deliver it. But at this point in time, to scale your business and be able to service, market, and sell to customers around the globe, or even more efficiently in a region, you've got to leverage technology. Uh-oh. Well, I'll take a question. I can read a question. There was one about statistics and about, is the data point only pertaining to the US market or global perspective? It's global. And so once again, you can go to that address on state of sales, state of marketing, or connected customer, and you can see the slices. And in fact, we have a slice for India in some of those reports. But we have Australia, New Zealand, we'll have Japan, we have North America, Latin America. So there are good slices of data as well as sizes that are out there. So I wanted to answer that data question because I get that often.
Sure. Yep. Wonderful. Now, this question, which is, given the current stress on finances, should organizations invest currently in building existing customer experiences and expect more share of wallet from them, or should they look for new customers? I know you mentioned that during your presentation, but in this case, he's saying the cost of acquisition for new customers is low, and so are exit barriers. So then how do you make a decision?
Well, if the cost of acquisition of a new customer is low, go for it, right? I mean, that is an unusual situation. Many people pay multiple X's to gain new business from a net new customer than from an existing customer. But I want to be clear here. It's not an either or. It's not a you go after net new customers or you focus on your base of customers. This is an and play. You want to do both. So if you have a very small sales force, you could have 2, 3, 4, 5 people. You could have 50 or 500, whatever the number. Do you have 1 or 2 or 10% or 20% of your selling organization that's responsible for selling into the base and the rest of them are selling externally? Or do you let marketing try to push as much business at an automation from an online commerce perspective and then let sales development reps or someone like that pick up those leads and then nurture them across the line from a closing perspective? But you have to make sure you take care of your existing base. The other way to do that would be to have your customer service organization, your customer success organization, focus on those existing customers to continue to upsell and cross-sell. But the connection between sales and service, if you're going to be doing it that way, is really, really important. So I don't want you to hear me say that you have to pick one or the other. Last year, I actually said I felt it was the year of the existing customer and not the net new customer because there was so much disruption and uncertainty. But now I feel like we can get back to this blend of acquiring net new customers as well as taking care of the base.
Should definitely go for it, is what I heard you say, Tiffani.
I'm sorry?
I said if the cost of acquisition is low for the new customers, then you definitely go for it. That's what I heard.
Go for it, right? But I mean, it depends. You could do an exercise and literally say, how much does it cost me to acquire a net new customer? And then how much does it cost me to sell into the base? The answer you may find it might be more expensive into the base. Okay, it might be more expensive to sell outside, but until you know the real cost of acquisition, then I think you're better served to do both.
There's a very interesting question from Sangam. Sangam is asking, what are the top 3 levers in customer centricity which have got impacted due to the pandemic for a service brand?
So I would say for a service brand specifically, you have 24/7 service. You have now everybody trying to connect online. And so do you have the ability to chat? Do you have the ability to respond to connection via email or, via social media platforms or WeChat, whatever it might be? Are you in the channels that your customers want to communicate with you on? So I would say that pre-pandemic, I kind of mentioned this at the beginning of my presentation, there might have been a lack of investment in digital transformation and digital technologies pre-pandemic. All of a sudden that accelerated. And one of the areas we saw a ton of investment was in the service side of things. And so if you are a service organization and you want to pivot towards being better at the experience, I would once again start with your customers and ask them, what part of your service do they like? Why did they choose your brand? Even ask some customers that left you why they left, why they potentially went to a competitor. Understanding what experience they're currently having and what you aspire to have it be, you may find that gap. And if you find the gap, then you need to figure out what are the things you can shore up in order to improve that from a performance standpoint. But if you're a pure play service and the service you're selling is humans, then it's about making sure that you enable and empower your employees to have everything that they need in order to deliver those amazing experiences to your customers. Get this really clear here. It's employee first and customer centricity. Your customer, if you want your customers to love your brand, you have to get your employees to love their job. And the way to get your employees to love their job is give them the ability to do their job in a much more efficient and effective way. So I'd say that's why I was saying a few minutes ago that you can't sort of do this at scale without the usage of technology. And so ultimately it would have to be those investments, understanding what your customers want from you, figuring out where you have gaps, and then shoring it up. But I'll tell you that pretty much globally right now, it's how do you continue to deliver compelling experiences without human interaction? And how do you replicate that kind of experience digitally? And each brand, each company, each region in various industries is different, but you have to find your way forward.
The next question is from Rajesh, and he's asking, in the current transactional world, what is the best way to calculate customer lifetime value? He's talking about a small food business that he has, and in India, he says, it's the era of cloud kitchens. So that's the context he's talking about, and he says, how do I calculate customer lifetime value?
Great question, because I'm a huge fan of customer lifetime value for all kinds of reasons, because not all customers are created equal. And so the lifetime value, it would be taking your CAC or your customer acquisition cost, how much they then, from a revenue perspective, generate for you. When will you pay back that CAC? And so if you were the previous question, right, it says the cost of acquisition is really low. You may pay back day one, which is fantastic. But once you pay back, now you're on the customer lifetime value is, what is their value over the course of the lifetime that they are with you as a customer? If they call you 4 or 5 times, or, if in this is the food business, if they're returning food all the time, or they're very needy from a customer perspective, it might be really expensive to service them. So even though you paid back the acquisition cost, is it a good investment for you to continue to serve them, because you lose money every time they reach out? And so understanding that lifetime value is a huge, huge benefit to you from a business perspective. Now, for those of you who don't track lifetime value, it is a great exercise for you to understand, where should I be going to find the right customers? Who are the most profitable customers for us? And customer experience and customers, or let me say that different, sorry. Customer centricity is to focus on those customers that are the most profitable. It isn't about focusing on the entire long tail of customers who might buy from you once. You can't afford to deliver them a high touch experience. So understanding which of those customers has a great lifetime value, highly profitable, and is loyal and is continuing to spend and doing all those things that you need them to do, then those are the ones that you should continue to focus in on. And so understanding lifetime value, cost of acquisition, profitability of customers, if you know those things, you are so far ahead of so many others, because that kind of rigor in your business will help you make the right decisions, right? Going back to me saying growth is a thinking game. You can actually outthink your competition if you know those levers really well and you can pull them accordingly.
Sure. Thank you, Tiffani. And, you've got a counter question. And I always say this, that, getting a counter question means audience is hanging on to every word you're saying.
Good. Excellent. Bring it on.
Yeah, you're very, very popular today. So Narayan is saying, he's referring to HCL and a very famous CEO in India, Vineet Nair, who wrote a book about, employee first in the tech industry. So you also said employee first and therefore customer centricity, right? He's saying, but in an industry like BPO, business process outsourcing, or entry-level sales organization where the employee turnover is very, very high, then how do you follow this philosophy of being employee first? And does it work?
It definitely works. So I recently did a research project in the US. This is specifically in the US, and we're about to take it global. But I had a hypothesis that there was no coincidence that Salesforce was one of the best places to work around the globe. It's number 1 in like 15 or 16 countries, and it's in the top 5 in the rest of the world. It's one of the most innovative companies in the world, and it's the fastest growing enterprise software company. I didn't think there was a coincidence between those 3 things. So I went to our chief marketing officer, Tiffani Bova, and I asked her, let's do a research project and prove out this hypothesis. She said, okay. So we went to Forbes and we did it. And what we found was companies that were very strong in employee experience had a much better customer experience. And when those 2 things were in place, the growth rate was 1.8x. So for $1 billion company, it's 40 million in additional revenue. Now, if you're a small business, you can just do the math that there's a lot of goodness to be had. Now, employee experience might have been things like, is it a nice office? Do you, give away free lunch? Do you have, foosball tables, in your lunchrooms? Employee experience now is totally different. Can I work from anywhere? Do I feel safe? Do I have the tools I need to do my job anywhere? That employee experience can be how you hire, how you onboard them, how you train them. Do you continue to make those investments in training them? Do they have to open, 8 applications in order to do their job, or do they only have to, open one? We did some research with Tableau that showed that the average enterprise had 900 plus applications and only 27% of them were integrated, which means that all the employees actually had to log in to multiple systems to do their job. That's not a great experience. If they are they actually want to upskill and reskill and learn something, that there's no online learning management platform for them. So employee experience is about, are they able to do their job? So going back to the salesperson example I gave during my presentation, if 66% of their time is spent on non-selling activities, that's not a great employee experience. You're never going to get it to 0, but could you move it 10%? Could you take some of that off of their plate? If they're happy in what they do, they feel empowered and they're trained, maybe turnover will actually go down. And so maybe that's a metric you start to use, similar to lifetime value, is what's the turnover rate and why are people turning over? If it's just because it's the nature of they're in entry-level positions and that's kind of what happens, then you have to make a decision of how much do you want to invest, because if you could invest just a little bit more, could you keep them from leaving? Because you want to make those investments in people who are going to continue to stay. So ultimately, I'd say that there is huge benefit in employees being productive, right? The fastest way to get customers to love your brand is to get employees to love their job. Full stop. So if you're leaning towards improving customer experience, it has to start with the employees.
One of the last questions, which is a controversial question once again, Tiffani, is Indra asking, saying, does customer centricity always work? We've had examples in India of Kingfisher and Jet Airways Airlines, which offered fantastic customer service. And they both, as businesses, ultimately failed, but those were because of financial reasons, the business reasons. So therefore, they're saying that the head of the business, should they listen to marketing to create brilliant customer experience, or should they listen to the CFO?
No, so, Deepali, I wish we could have this conversation because it's so much fun. I'm a seller, and I had to learn how to be a marketer and I had to learn how to be a customer service executive. But at my core, I'm a salesperson. And what always bothers me about sort of who's responsible is then it feels like if the CMO says I own customer experience, or if the CFO says I own customer experience, then people feel like, oh, I don't own it, they own it. The truth is everybody in a company has an impact on a customer's experience. Decisions that are made all over the organization. How easy is it to sign a contract? How easy is it to return something? How easy is it to get somebody on the phone? Is your website user-friendly? Did you design products that customers actually want? There's all kinds of implications that happen from all over the company. And so customer experience should be owned by everybody. Now, there should be somebody who's responsible maybe for the metric of customer experience. That I understand, and kind of setting the direction and what's the tone. But everybody individually has to understand how their role plays a part in an amazing customer experience. If people don't understand what they do day in and day out has an impact, then what are they showing up for? You don't want them to show up just for a paycheck. You want them to show up once again because they love their job and they love working with the customers that you have. So there are, unfortunately, to your point, businesses that have focused on customer centricity or customer experience that have made poor decisions in other parts of the business. But, if you're going to say somebody is doing everything they can for their customer, unless it makes them unprofitable because they're over-indexed to experience and it's not balanced possibly by how much they're charging and there's no way for them to remain profitable. But you're never going to go wrong if you focus in on your employees and your customers, because that in and of itself is an area where many companies focus so much on what they sell, they don't focus on how they sell and how they engage. And those two things together are, very, very powerful.
Thank you so much, Tiffani. And my 2 questions that I wanted to ask you.
Okay, great.
You call yourself a business anthropologist, right? Tell us, what does that mean?
So I in writing the book, Growth IQ, I basically went and studied what companies had done. And so it was sort of like being an anthropologist, right? Moving away a little dirt, looking for things, finding patterns, uncovering something no one else had, found or figured out in the past. And so I'm constantly striving to learn from what we've done historically so that it can try to guide what we do going forward. And I think an anthropologist is fairly similar, right? You uncover something, you learn something new, you have to have that beginner's mind to say, if I uncover something that flies in the face of what I thought 5 minutes ago, I have to be open and willing to sort of change my mind. So that's what I meant by a business anthropologist.
I think we're all very enthralled with what you had to say today. I think your book is going to be a big hit in India also. I can tell you that. But how did the name Growth IQ come about? Tell us the backstory.
Well, I had another name for the book, actually, and my publisher didn't like the other name. And while I completely disagreed with that decision, I had Growth IQ literally as a holding name for the book, literally the holding name. And then as I started to really, flesh out what the book was going to say and how I was going to say it, I realized that Growth IQ was the perfect name for the book, because it really was, how do I help people think differently about growth and really building that muscle? And so Carol Dweck wrote the book, Growth Mindset, which, versus a fixed mindset. And so it was almost a paying homage to so many other things that have been written before me, to really focus in on the thinking side of growth, and also not from a human element. Because, the quote that you mentioned from Ginny Rometty was, growth and comfort do not coexist. And so it was part of a longer quote she gave. And during that time, IBM was 21 quarters of no growth. And so ultimately, she had to make very, very hard decisions. And so that was, how do I think my way through, divest some businesses, double down in other businesses, reorganize the company, give people an understanding of why and what it is we're doing. And by the way, not everybody sees the forest through the trees. She was not rewarded for those decisions early on. And so ultimately, that's why I say that growth is a thinking game.
Yeah. Thank you, Tiffani. Any messages for students who are currently at colleges and wanting to make a corporate career? They're at B schools. There are a lot of our listeners. So what is your advice for them?
Oh, I would say, great on you. Look, I think lifetime learning is important. So for those of you still in university, my piece of advice to you would be trust the process. There is no one way to achieve what you want to achieve from a career perspective. In the US, I went to a state school, which is not a private university, and I did not get my MBA. And my undergraduate college counselor actually said these words to me: you may want to choose a different major. My major at the time was business administration, because business might not be right for you. That was the advice I got from my college counselor. And here I am today, many, 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 many years later. But you have to know what it is you want to accomplish and believe in yourself and trust the process, that along the way, you might not make the right decisions. You might not take the right jobs. You may not, do the things that you really love doing, but you will find that path in time. And everybody's time frame is different, but stay committed to the journey. So that's what I'd say for university. For people who are in the middle of their career, we have to continue to invest in our own learning. That every day should be an opportunity to have that beginner's mind, try something different, learn a new skill, listen to a podcast, watch a webinar like this, read a book, read my book, ultimately just to get yourself into a place where you're constantly stretching your understanding of what are the things you should be paying attention to. And for those, maybe in the end of, getting close to the end of their career, I can only tell you my own journey is that I'm very much in a point in time where I used to consume. And now I'm very much about contributing. How can I push back out, to an industry and a community that's been so good to me over the course of my career? And so mine is how do I give back? How do I every day take some time out to give back, either to somebody, to some community, to do something like this, whatever it might be, ultimately to try to continue to add value every single day. And so I think it's important to understand that lifelong learning is a commitment. And if you don't invest in yourself, nobody else will. So every single day, be a student of your profession, whatever that is, and/or be a student of what you aspire to be. So you're constantly reaching and stretching. So that's what I'd say across sort of an entire career arc of what I'd focus on.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. And now, last piece of advice for small businesses. I know we've spoken about them already, but anything else that you want to share with them in their journey?
Look, small businesses, you guys are the heartbeat of communities, cities, and towns around the world. 99% of companies or something like that around the world are small businesses. You are what powers entire countries. So the question is, how do you set yourself up for success with limited assets, capital, people, experience, whatever it might be? The good news is that every mid-sized business or large business started out as a small business, and not all growth is good growth. So understand, what do you actually want to be? What are your goals as a small business? What size do you want to be? What problems and solutions do you want to solve? What kinds of customers do you want to have? Understanding that is half the battle. If you can lock down those kinds of aspirations, and not that it never changes, but so that you set the tone, and everybody who works for you and everybody who's part of your broader shareholders, your vendors, where you might rent your office space, your communities, whatever you might do, if you can create a culture that people want to work for your small business and customers want to buy from your small business, you will continue to grow. But you have to be willing to understand, what kind of company do you want to be 12 months from now, 24 months from now, 36 months from now. But I would tell you, small businesses that invest in technology are in a much better position than those that don't. Because, for example, during this time, if we didn't have technology, imagine what it would be like. So ultimately, I would say, invest in technology. Make sure you have a great understanding of what kind of small business you want to be. And then understand your differentiation, what makes you unique in the market. And then that's where you want to double down. But I am fully bullish and inspired by the small businesses around the globe that have been so resilient over the last 12 or 14 months, have really shown up for their people and for their customers. And so, I'd love to hear back from you, what you guys have done in order to be successful going forward, because I am a huge fan of small businesses everywhere.
Tiffani, thank you, thank you, thank you. We don't really know how to thank you for spending your time with us. I know this is early morning where you are. The last 60 minutes have been the most enthralling time. I will remember it for a long time, and I'm sure the audience will. A big hug to you, for doing this. Wonderful. And before I let you go, we must also thank our partners who make it happen for us. The community partners that we have. So thank you, the team at Resultix. Thank you, the team at Paul Reiter, at Shulini University, and at Gully. Thank you for partnering Future Generali. And thank you, Ashish, for inviting me here today. And Master Speak is a great, great series, where you're getting us brilliant gurus, like Tiffani, to speak to us. So thank you very much. Till next time.
Thank you, Dipali. Namaste.
Namaste.